was asleep for 2 years. I had my house repossessed, car repossessed, wife left me, all the usual telltale signs of being an idiot. I actually then ended up having a massive anxiety attack, and then I thought, I don't want to do this anymore, and I quit.
What, so as soon as you left, you were planning on a bit of time off, and then...
Yeah, and then a week later, I decided that I wanted to set a business up and do it on my own.
How it grew from there?
I have no idea. Bit of luck. We sat down, went for dinner and said, right, we've got to change this.
For the industry itself, what do you think should happen as such to improve it?
How long have you got? I'm not known for thinking before I speak.
Perfect podcast guest.
But yeah. And that's what I hate about our industry.
Lee, Castledine or Castledine? Either?
Yeah,
okay.
Southern or Northern, yeah.
I'll go Castledine.
Yeah, Southern then.
Mate, thanks so much for coming on today. Thanks for your time. I'm really looking forward to this episode. I've sort of been scouting you out on LinkedIn and I've seen some of your stuff, so going to be a good one. So like I said, always start off with a little bit of like yourself and like what you were like before Hop. So like a little bit about upbringing and then like school and work life. So if you want to let us know.
Cool. Okay, well, hi. Thanks for having me on. Lee Castledine. School, very short, didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, left with nothing. Didn't even sit an exam. So a very short school career. And then went into joinery, into a trade background, did that for a couple of years, realised that, I was more suited to managing than actually doing it practically. Started my own business, long story short, sold that at 32, came to London as a PM, site-based PM, ran a few projects, decided I could do that on my own, started another business, which lasted about 3 years. It was around 2008, 2010 with the credit crunch.
Yeah,
I got hit for about 60 or 70,000. I wound the business up.
Yeah.
I had a couple of years sabbatical.
It took a bit out.
Yeah,
there's a hell of a lot in there.
Yeah.
Let's have a little go at a few of those. There's a hell of a lot there. So, you did joinery and then you started a carpentry business, joinery business.
Joinery business, yeah.
So did you sort of like employ just joiners and carpenters?
Bench hand joiners, so mainly shop fitting works for a bigger company called Nuttall's. So we used to do all the stores like Sainsbury's, all the meat and coal counters and all that kind of stuff, and install all of those.
It's a ruthless market, shop fitting, isn't it?
Awful. Yeah. 100 hours a week, every week. Yeah, week in, week out. So for not a lot of money either.
Especially you guys, because I suppose you were creating like the finished products as well. So if there was anything damaged or anything in transport or on site, then
the amount of times I've been running up and down the country delivering a panel because someone's dropped it or smashed it, not wrapped it properly, that kind of stuff. So yeah.
And then how long did that go on for, that business?
I was about 12 years, something like that, 10 to 12 years.
So 12 years worth of business there. And you said it was 32 you stopped that, did you?
Yep.
So 20, you started at 20. That's early to start as well.
Yeah.
You must have had business acumen from early.
I think no real education in the sense of business, but just an eye and a head for being able to do things properly and help other people do things properly. And it just seemed the obvious thing to do is to, I was never going to make any money cutting wood. So I got others to do it for me. And that was that really.
Yeah.
It was ruthless though.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
But I bet you learned so much just on that 12 years, not only about the industry itself, but like being a leader, being a business owner as such.
It was, and you learn everything about business as well. So how to do the books, the accounting, sales, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that's where a lot of people potentially fall down when they start a business and then just employ people to do everything that they can't do, which is obviously the right way to do, but you've got to learn to do it yourself first. I'm a big believer in you should be able to do it. And if you need to do accounting, then you can drop back in and do that, as well as doing, what your day-to-day jobs are. So it was tough, but it's the hours really when you're shop fitting. It's ruthless.
Yeah, I bet.
They've got a deadline. The industry we're in now, yes, they have a deadline, but there's always a week or two grace if you need it. Not that we're ever late. or maybe was. So it's if the shop's not open, you've had it, and then you're doing the job for nothing.
It's ruthless. So that, that 12 years, you've grown a lot in that 12 years, learned a lot. And then it came to a bit of a crash and then, safe to say, you said you forked out a little bit of money or weren't paid a little bit of money. Are you able to go into that?
Well, this was after the shop fitting business, a larger company. In fact, it was an odd story. It's about 4:00 on a Friday afternoon. I was about ready to kill myself, got another week to come, had no work, working all the hours. And a screw fix rep came in, and he said to me, "You look stressed." I said, yeah, I'm pretty stressed. Like, well, I'm going down the pan basically. Yeah. And he said, "Well, why don't you ring this company?" So I rang them, 4:00 Friday afternoon, and the MD answered, and they're a massive business, 15 million turnover then. And I said, "Hi, I'm Lee, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Have you got any work?" And he went, "Yeah, I've got a year's worth of work. You couldn't have rang at a better time."
Wow.
So it's all about luck. Anyway, he came over on the Monday and he said, what guarantees can you give me that you can cope with it? I said, "If you own me, if you buy me out." Yeah. His chairman came over the next day. We did a deal. He bought it out, and I left. And then I went and worked for them for probably 18 months, 2 years in their head office. They took over my business, as it were. And then I came to London after that. That's when I did a few years with a business that's no longer around. And then set my own up 2007, 2008, something like that. And that's the one where I was working for one particular project management company, who will remain nameless because they're still around. And it was tough. We were asked to do things that I wasn't particularly happy with. The industry used to be. I think it's got a lot better now. And we did some things, and it ended up costing me about 60 to 80K, and I hadn't got another project to go on to. There was only 2 or 3 of us employed in the business, but I eventually had to close the door, and I did that, and then I had a couple of years off.
Yeah, was that just to, there's a hell of a lot in those 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, I've not really had a rest. So yeah, it was nice to take a couple of years
what was
out.
it, just did you a bit travelling or?
No, I just did a bit of dossing around, I just did nothing. I mean, I can tell you loads of stuff, but yeah. Well, it ended up it wasn't a great 2 years. Okay. It was 2 years off, and 2 years into, we may as well be honest. I'm known for my honesty. Yeah. And 2 years into debauchery, basically. Yeah. So yeah, I was asleep for 2 years. Yeah. If you like. Sure. And then, I had my house repossessed. Yeah. Car repossessed, wife left me, all the usual telltale signs of being an idiot. Sure. And then I got a call from a guy in London that I know, who I love and respect dearly, a guy called Nick Fox. And he rang me and said, "I'm setting up a business. Would you like to come and be like the front man?" Because I've worked in London, I've worked in the industry. He was a petitioning contractor. Yeah. He set up a new business, and I came and joined him, and he got me out of a hole, really. Yeah. And then 6-7 years into that, the business was going really well, 14-15 million turnover. So I think, right, it's about time I did it on my own again. Because I suppose you were so well-rounded then. I think so, yeah. And I'd got the history, I'd got the history of running a business, but also the bad times as well. And I think that sets you up. Yeah. I think he who succeeds first time round is special. And there's not many of us around that do that. And not only that as well, Lee, I mean, you've gone 20 years old to start your business, and you ran it successfully for 12 years. And then, there was another venture, and then you had a bit of time off. So in that period there, learning as just a man and a leader itself, you've probably got a lot more in the repertoire as such than somebody who's just left uni, started a business. And I think so. I think it just gives you a bit more of a rounding, you're a bit more grounded on decisions. But I'm not known for thinking before I speak. Perfect podcast guest. But yeah, but I've always been able to get away with it because I've run my own businesses, so it's never had an effect. I've never been fired, so that's good. That's one thing I've never been, so I can, one thing to my name. But yeah, and then I think, I came and joined him. We started, I actually then ended up for some reason having a massive anxiety attack one weekend. Yeah. And then I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to take some more time out. And I quit. Yeah. I got married and then quit. And then set this up a week later because I couldn't sit around. So as soon as you left, you were planning on a bit of time off and then? Yeah, I'm planning on time off. And then a week later, I decided that I wanted to set a business up and do it on my own. Completely different field. That was a traditional business. Yeah. This is D&B. Did that and met Wayne. And that's the co-founder. Yep. Right. And then, so before it was traditional, this is D&B. Yeah. What's the difference in your opinion? What's the difference in trying to navigate through the markets? Well, 15% margin is a big difference.
Yeah, the main one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key. It's not the key at all. Lifestyle is the key. I think anyone can build a traditional job, but not everyone can make money at it. For me, it's the fastest route to the bottom. There are lots of companies that are very good and very successful, but you've seen, I think, over the last 12 months, 2 years, kind of post-COVID, that there's been a lot of traditional businesses ended up going down the pan, folding, because you tend to be buying work because you're pricing a schedule of work, and then you've got QSs in house trying to pull that to pieces for variations and change this, or that wasn't included, it's going to cost this, and it's just a fight constantly, and you're fighting. It's like when you get divorced, it's like an ugly divorce, traditional. You get, one wants that, the other wants that, and you've just got lawyers taking all the money. And I think that's what traditional work is. Yeah, you've got one QS. Whoever's good at QS, who's the better QS, wins the fight, and it's just the fastest race to the bottom. I think the industry needs to grow up with traditional work. People have got to make money, not at the extent of the project, but they've got to make money. And 2, 3, 4%. If you're turning over 10 billion, fine, 2% is good. But they're not, they're turning over 50, 60 million on 2 to 5%. It's just pointless.
So risky as well.
Yeah.
But there's too many people coming in who are trying to undercut other contractors just to win the work. And then they think, do you know what, we're in. Here we are, we're in with these project managers, or we're in with this company as such. So let's do this job and then we'll get more work. And then they end up making 1 to 2%, then they try on the next one, but they get undercut by somebody else.
And the problem with that is there's no buffer. You make one mistake, and if it's over 6 floors, that's 6 mistakes, and it could be anything, 6 sets of doors, they're not cheap. It's 20 grand for 6 sets of doors. You start losing that off of 2 and 3, 4, 5%, and it's just pointless. I think 21 Construction, I think they were the biggest surprise to everyone, but then when you look back at how they were winning work, it's no surprise in the end.
When you peel back the layers, you kind of see, do you know what, I can kind of get why that happened, because you said, they were doing this and that.
A real shame, because a great company, but a real shame.
So obviously inception of Hop by then. So you've met Wayne, who's the co-founder.
So I met Wayne a couple of years before. We were introduced by a subcontractor at the cricket. I found him really boring.
Cricket or Wayne?
No, Wayne. I drank 10 pints and he watched the cricket. So it was a corporate hospitality day. So we didn't really speak that much. So he's a big cricket. He calls them badgers. I don't understand what that is.
But it sounds a perfect business partner. Someone who's having
yin and yang. Yeah. And he's D&B. So when I quit my old company, he was going through a tough time at his. And it basically said, let's get together. So I started the business. 8 months into it, Wayne joined. We knew he was going to join from day one, but the timings weren't right for him at that time. He was getting commissions and so on and so forth. And there's no point leaving 40 grand's worth of commissions behind. So
no one would do that.
Not that I think he got them anyway, but the company will remain nameless.
There's a few of them in this episode already.
I think we'll edit that out if I say it. And so he joined, and we hadn't really done it. I was under a year's non-compete. Thanks, Nick, which was great actually, because it gave me a long time to set the business up, start out, look at where I wanted to go, or where we wanted to go, should I say, how we were going to structure it, our branding and all that kind of stuff. So we had 8-10 months to do that. Then Wayne joined, and then we haven't looked back.
And that was the start.
That was the start, because Wayne's D&B.
Yep.
He's a D&B whore. He's been around a few businesses. He knows everyone in the industry, and I knew nothing of D&B apart from one project that I'd done. And so I think when we joined, I think we've got it in our PDF brochure somewhere, that we combine the traditional ethics and the traditional quality that you need to have, along with the kind of the fast and loose D&B side, which is the more fun side of the business and more creative. And it works. I mean, you just have to look at our projects.
You showed us some, but before we hopped on the actual podcast, some of them are incredible. And you mentioned as well, whilst we were talking about, is how you uniquely design them to suit the client, rather than saying, do you know what, timber walls are popular at the moment. Why don't everyone have a timber wall? Yeah,
there's an element of that. You can't get away from that.
Sure.
We're not reinventing the wheel, but we listen to what the client wants, and we don't have a type. I don't think there might be 2 out of 150, 200 projects that we've done that you'd say, oh, they're both hot projects. The rest you wouldn't know because there's no type. We have a brand for hop, but not a build type. And I think that's what separates us, and that's why we win a lot of our work. Our hit rate's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because we listen. We won a project 18 months ago against two of the real big hitters in the industry. And we went to the mid-bid, spoke to the client, usual thing, had an hour, went through a few things, and then didn't contact them again until we pitched. They were on the phone every day to them. The client told us why we won it and how we won it, not only our design, but our approach to that and our kind of family feel, the friendly side of who we are, director involvement, usual things. We're not reinventing the wheel, but we deliver. Yeah,
and just those like finer touches, like you said, the family element, rather than it just being like, at the end of the day, it is a business deal you're doing to make money, but rather than there's people, probably contracts out there in design and build companies who are just, you can see from the outset they're just there for the deal, for the money, whereas like you sound like you guys are there for the nurturing of the client. I think them on a journey.
It's exciting to make money, of course it is, but money can't be a driver. And we make decisions based on what's right for the project, not what's right for the profit line and the bottom line of our business. We're now making money after 5 years of hard work. We had a couple of projects early on that we lost a lot of money on, caused us a lot of issues, but we got through that. And now we're making money because we're doing a good job. We're not snagging for 6 weeks on end afterwards. We're not doing that. And if we are, we've got a day two business for that. So they go in, but it's not snagging. It could be the client moves in, lives with the project for 6 months and thinks, right, that doesn't quite work. And we send them in, and so that also gives us good contacts with the clients, and we keep in front of them.
Ties in really well.
So repeat business is good.
It's the best, but it's the best one. You haven't got to spend any money in theory for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they're much cheaper than us because they haven't got the overheads that we've got either. So you mentioned there that from the inception of Hop, it was just yourself and Wayne, and then all the way up to now, there's probably a hell of a journey in between that. Yes.
So it started off just you two, was it?
Yep.
The business, and then let me know how it grew from there.
I have no idea. Bit of luck.
I'm still trying to work out now.
Yeah. I look around and think, what's going on here? And now I don't do anything. I couldn't tell you where we're going in the future either. I think, when we first started, we started in a WeWork.
Yeah.
In Clerkenwell. Not Clerkenwell. Anyway, it was a WeWork local to here. And we decided to basically go for it. And we had a couple of contacts from my old business. Wayne had a couple of contacts from his. We hit them up and got a couple of little jobs in. I think we did about 600,000 year one. So from about 8 months into my non-compete, I thought, right, you can sue me now. If you're not going to sue me for 4 months, So we did that. And took on like an office manager, someone that could do a bit of graphic design, a bit of accounting, a bit of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if I look back at our early days, our brochures and PDF, my God, I'm surprised we're here.
And how was that, like 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago?
We're in year 6 now. Sorry, 6 years ago, 2018.
A few dodgy PDFs then, was there?
Oh, yeah. And as soon as I get on a PDF, that's it. It's all over. I write what I say, what I think. So, yeah, a lot of it was edited.
That's why you mentioned earlier that you don't have access to the brochure.
They don't let me do anything. Keep them away. I'm surprised that they're all outside there listening now. But and we took on a girl called Christina. She was fantastic, incredibly bright. In fact, too bright for us. Eventually, we cut to her. We had to let her go because as we grew, we were taking more jobs off of her. So she was doing everything. And then all of a sudden we got our own, in-house graphic designer, our own accountant, all that kind of stuff became in-house. So she was left with nothing to do. And she was way too bright. Not that office managers aren't bright, but she was, university educated. And so we let her go. It was a mutual thing, but we miss her. She was great.
Yeah.
And then, as the work started coming in, I'm never one for comfort zones. I don't like sitting with my legs dangling off a nice cliff and thinking I'll jump off.
I can already tell that. I've met you for an hour and I can already tell you like that.
But I think, which is dangerous, but I think it's good because without growing, we wouldn't have got through the early pains of losing money on projects. So we had to especially during COVID. I mean, COVID, we grew by 9 staff through that period. But it was just taking everything on. I think most businesses did. I mean, you look at the big boys, they did the same. You know, we were fishing in the same pond as them through COVID, or they were with us, should I say. And then we realized quite quickly that we were just being busy fools and not making any money, but busy.
Yeah.
And then we came out of COVID and we sat down, myself and Wayne. In fact, I think we had 8 bottles of red wine and a steak, and said that's
a few dodgy decisions.
The best decisions. And they're often made with a hangover as well. Best decision. Yeah. You can't wake up fresh as your daisy and make a good decision. That doesn't work. So yeah, we sat down, went for dinner and said, right, we've got to change this. You know, our product's great, what we deliver. You know, we took on a construction director, Paul, who changed the way we deliver projects, because we were delivering them, me and Wayne. And as good as we think we are, we're not. There are much better people. So yeah.
Well, at least you're honest about that. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you know, there's probably leaders out there that think like no one can do it as well as me, so I just want to do everything. But
then why lead? That's not leading, right? It's true. You know, everyone that works here is better than me at everything they do. I can deal with managing them, but you can't manage someone that's not as good as you. You've got to have people better than you. Otherwise it's pointless. Otherwise it makes my job harder. I can disappear for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you wouldn't know I've gone. Although the culture might change a little bit. So and
the volume level is probably a lot less, Lee.
Depends which day of the week it is. We changed the way we wanted to operate. We wanted to pick and choose our jobs, and it sounds a bit bold, but it's worked. And by picking the projects that we want to work on, we go at them. We go balls deep. You know, if we're going to pitch a job, it's all in. We don't pitch 10 jobs a month. We probably pitch 3 or 4, or sometimes 1, 2. But they're jobs we generally win because we go all out for them. And I think that's the difference. And that's what comes across in our pitches. When we pitch against the bigger guys that are doing 20 pitches a month, you know, they've got designers that are working on 10 projects at one time. I mean, how the hell can you? That's why they all look the same, because they haven't got time to be creative. You know, we took one on from a big competitor. They're a massive business, and she's fantastic. And she said she didn't have the creativity that she's got here because she's working on 2 or 3 projects. And she can research what's coming up, what's happening in the industry and that kind of stuff. So
you've almost gone from, you know, like taking on whatever there is out there and just muddling your way through delivering those projects to, you know, kind of changing your business model and looking at it and being like, let's just hand select the ones that, you know, we can put time, attention and effort into. And then I suppose from the client's perspective as well, they probably appreciate that more because they feel like they're getting looked after more than
they're getting pound for pound then, aren't they? They're not getting, you know, 80% of what we promised because we're busy elsewhere and we're doing all of this and that. So we concentrate, and if we can't build a job properly, then we shouldn't be building it at all. And that's it. And that's why I think we hand everything over on time. Relatively snag free. I mean, we're in construction, nothing snag free. Anyone that says they can finish a job snag, we might have, you know, 10 or 12 snags or something like that, but we aim to be as best as we can. So it's much better. It's much easier if you can select without being arrogant about it. If you can select and you've got a good product, people want you.
And then, so that's, you know, COVID was that you had to sit down, you had a fair few bottles of wine, bit of steak, woke up hungover, make a decision to change the business model. And you hand select the projects from there. So like from that point to now, like what does that look like as a timeline?
In terms of a timeline, it's probably been the last 2.5 years, 3 years, maybe 2.5 years. And we had no work when we made that decision as well. So it was great. What a great decision that was. My wife's going, what's going on? Why are you at home all day? Well, I've got no work. We decided we don't want any. We just contacted the teams that we'd been working with, the project managers, you know, agents and so on, and just said, look, don't send us any more of these kind of tenders. They're not what we want. This is, you know, this square box is where we sit. Anything outside of that, forget it.
That's a bold move, by the way, because like you've literally gone from having consistent work where you can make money from and then just to being like, do you know what, let's cut this here.
But you consistent work, I'd rather consistent work making not very much money. And again, it's not about the money, but what it does do is if you cock one of them up, like I go back to the traditional side, if you're messing one of those up, and we are builders, we're in construction. Yes, it's the nice, pretty side, and we do all the design, and it's very creative, and we think about what we're doing. We're still going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
We're not perfect. So if you make mistakes when on 2 or 3 jobs and you're not making as much money as what you should do because you're buying jobs because you need to get busy, you've got 20 staff or 100 staff, whatever it is, it's just false economy.
Yeah.
So we decided that, this is what we are. We're a Cat A plus Cat B fit out business. All the pretty stuff you put in another level on an office block is not for us. And we got offered projects like that all day long. And we didn't accept any of those, but stuff with new lift shafts and all of that kind of stuff. It's not what we do. That said, we're handing over one. It was too good to be true. It was negotiated, and it was like a golden egg project that one of the companies that we work for, the PM companies, came and said, we'd like to negotiate with you. We love what you do. We'll negotiate. It's a full Cat A plus. You dictate the timeline, which was nice, so we could build in, any leeway that we needed, and you're going to when you're putting new lifts in, new roof plant, no new real structural work, but just like the internal boxes and the cages in the lift. So and it's good and it's going really well. I think I showed you that one on the end.
There's a few in there. There's some lovely projects you showed us in there. You obviously mentioned that the previous model, there was probably a few horror jobs or things that went wrong. From your opinion, like why, if you're happy to go into it, why did they go wrong?
Because we weren't good enough to do them. We were understaffed, I think, as well at that time. So we got a call from what's now a really good client of ours. We didn't fall out, but we didn't work with them again for 2 years. Let's put it that way. Until we grew up, I think. We did a kind of part resi, part wasn't really office. I'd say it was more. It was a shop that they were turning into. I think. An estate agents, and they've got 3 or 4 flats above, and we were asked to do that during COVID, during the diesel crisis, during all of that
toilet paper crisis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was full in here. If you go in that cupboard in there, we've still got some left from there. And we did it, and we didn't give it the credit that it was due, and I'd say we bodged it. It wasn't a good project. It wasn't a good finished article, and we didn't have the to build new aluminium shop fronts and put all that on. It just wasn't our bag. But we took it on because it was kind of a bit of a favor for them, because they hadn't got anyone else really that wanted to do it, and now I know why. So we said, we'll do it. Never again. We lost a lot of money on that. We finished it, don't get me wrong. It wasn't great. I wouldn't show you around there. But people moving into a flat, they don't really see all of that. You know it's not good, and they think it's beautiful. So what can you do? But it wasn't good. And then even on that project, 12 months later, they came back with the retention. I think they owed us about 12,000, and we said, keep the 12,000 and do with it what you please. We can't claim that back. We cocked the job up. We gave you a nightmare. The client wasn't particularly friendly. There's about 100. He had an office next door, so it was an individual landlord. 120 variations in the first 3 weeks. So it was that.
Sounds like a nightmare already.
It was almost like a resi job. Which we said we'd never do. And we did. And now we'll say we'll never do it again.
We gave it a go, mate. At least you know you don't want to do that.
And I think it was that particular project that made us go, right, let's not do any of this anymore. This is what we are. We're a Cat B, Cat A plus fit out company, and that's it.
So made that decision. You've gone from, like you said, Cat A plus B onwards. So tell us about sort of like the first projects you did and then the following ons from that.
We've done so many. I don't know what the first ones were, but if we say our first, I kind of talk about the Cat A plus Cat B, because I think at the moment we're going through a strange time with a lot of landlord work. So landlords are realising they've got to fit out their floors in order to attract companies to come in, because there's a lot of space at the moment. And the Cat A plus, I think, is a thing of the past. I don't think it exists anymore. And if it does, it's nasty. I think it's a fitted space now. I think it's almost a landlord Cat B rather than we're dressing spaces. We've done a project at Bond Hill, 13,000 square foot. You can't do a Cat A plus on that. That has to be a fitted space. So, artwork on the walls, all sorts of stuff, flowers, greenery, all of that kind of biophilia, isn't it?
Yeah.
Greenery. All of that. So people can just literally move in, plonk the laptop down and work. And I think that's where it's going. And certainly because the Cat B stuff's dropped off quite a lot.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know the answer. I wished I did.
At least you're honest, mate.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those. It's just about, I think the people are nervous. It's expensive, right, to move an office. We spent £250,000 on these 2 floors, and we've got 2,000 square feet. 1,000 square feet per floor. You build that up. That's a lot of money, and it's often one person's choice.
Yeah. Yes,
there might be a board, but someone will be, targeted with spending that money. And if you get it wrong, it's a nightmare. So I think if you can find a landlord Cat B that's been done properly and has got a bit of character to it, whether it's yours or not, that remains to be seen. But you can then just adapt that to suit for a decent Cat B, to personalise it. And I think that's the way it's going, and it's cheaper. And I think you're non-committed to 10-year leases. If you're going into a floor like that, you can negotiate 3 to 5.
Yeah. So
I think obviously with the change in government, and I'm not getting into politics, but the change in government, people are sitting around waiting to see what's going to go on.
Do you think that's drive back expenditure on the fit out market, design and build?
I don't know. I don't think we're slowing down. We're definitely not slowing down, because the amount of landlord work is crazy.
Is that because, do you think they're trying to bring people back to offices, or taking?
Don't get me started on that.
Why not?
Working from home, my God.
I was actually going to lead on to that at some point. It's just, it's we may as well talk about it now.
Yeah.
But, it's just interesting to hear people's, opinions on it. And I know it's like a buzzword and like a hot topic. So like what is your opinion on the whole work from home?
Can I swear?
You can swear. You can do whatever you want.
I won't do that. No. Not yet. No, I think working from home has a place, but not in our industry. I think we're a collaborative business. We're a design and creative business, and anyone that can do that from home is a liar. I don't think you can. I think the Teams meetings are not personal enough. You sit there, half the people are on mute, on silent, so you're not getting any feedback. They're probably on their phones or whatever's going on. So I don't like it at all.
Yeah.
I agree with the principle, but I don't think it works. I think it works if the story, a good friend of mine, his son was an apprentice junior lawyer. They had him working from home. I mean, how's he going to learn work experience? How's he going to learn to mix in and the culture of the business? Even lawyers have culture. They certainly do now. Banks are getting more funky. They're getting better places to work, and I think they're adapting a lot more from the shirt and tie into. I'm not saying casual clothes makes you better, but it certainly relaxes you, and therefore you think more. Think more creative. So, I think the working from home, yes, we have a flexi day on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
We tried it on a Friday, and then everyone was just having 3-day weekends, which is cool, but as long as you're getting your work done. And I think Friday seems to be a deadline for pitches, projects, and all that kind of stuff. So we decided to do a Wednesday. So it's a short week. It's 2 days in, 1 day at home if you want to be at home, and then 2 days in after that. So and it works for us. I mean, I play golf now on a Wednesday, so I can't really slag anyone off, can I?
How have you found just like the collaboration and the productivity from going from because I don't actually know anyone else who does 2 days at the start, in the middle, work from home, flexibility, and then 2 days at the end. Like, has that changed a lot here?
Yeah, it's changed loads. I mean, what we have found is that not everyone wants to work from home. The office, though, you might get 4 or 5 in. I mean, there's only, I think, 18 upstairs and probably 16 permanent up there. But you'll get a third that come in, because not everyone lives in a 5-bed detached with an acre garden and, and a dog running around. And, some people live in a bedsit and they don't want to be in there. They want to get out, and they love seeing and meeting people. And we work in a really cool place, Farringdon, where we are. We overlook, the pub downstairs. It's just fantastic. We've got a Pret, Nando's and a pub. What more do you want? Yeah. So,
even though I think Nando's is overrated, by the way. But
me too. 4 weeks too much, isn't it? But yeah, but it's great, and it's a great place to work. I think you'll feel that kind of culture when you come in when it's busy. That's what this floor is, this first floor is about, and we have lots of drinks and stuff in here. So yeah, working from home, fine. But I think, when the snow's on the ground, people want to come into work. They don't want to sit at home on a miserable day, or, when it's bucketing it down, because you just don't feel like working.
And you need like human connection as well. So like,
always.
You mentioned and raised a valid point, like our industry specifically, you need the human connection, collaboration to be able to do your job properly, because everyone needs input, because there's so many different aspects to the business, to the design and build business. You need so many different inputs from different people who specialize in their specific area, that you may as well just be a sole trader if you're going to work from home.
Well, my wife's a hairdresser, so she loves that, But I think to the actual thing I'm trying to say is, a lot of our staff are university graduates. They're well educated. They spent 3 to 5 years at university, or however long it is. Longer than I spent at school anyway. And they'll
You've done right for yourself.
Yeah. Well, Dave's done all right for me. They spend that time, they're living in dorms, flats, bedsits, whatever, through their university life. And then they want to come to London and work and and then they say, oh, you can work from home. They're like, that's not what I've just spent 3 years learning. I want to get out. I want to be part of that. I want to be in the group. I want to be going down the pub at lunchtimes or whatever that is. But for those poor kids that are coming out of uni and going, right, we work from home 3 days a week. Like, what? So no, it's not for me.
It's a roundup, not for you.
Not for me, no. And I don't think for most people that enjoy, and if you don't enjoy going to work, then find another job or another career.
So let's just touch on the industry itself.
Here we go.
I'm super interested in, the plans for HOP, which we'll also touch on as well. But like the industry itself, so like, what's your opinions on where it's been, like 10 years ago to now? And then where do you think the industry itself is going in the future?
Well, I'm fairly new to this industry. Like I say, I didn't really come to London until I was 32, 33. I'd worked in London as a chippy before, but I've not really been and had that London, not been in the clique that is the 4 million clique of London. So I can only base it from kind of early 2000s to now is, I think we've become more open as an industry. I still think there's room for regulation, and we have none. I think there's less. Well, I think with with social media, I think that's changed our industry. I think massively. LinkedIn, for example, everybody knows everybody. It was a bit more cloak and dagger back in the early days, and there was lots of things that went on that shouldn't have done, and I'm sure they still do, but it's a lot less now. And you can take from that what you will.
I was going to ask what, but I don't know if you're going to want to go into
briefcases and cars and that kind of stuff. It was right. Certainly when I joined the industry, and it's great. If you're on the receiving end of that, that's great. But if you're not, then you're either not winning work, or it's very difficult. It's a closed shop, and I think it's much more open now. I think the insurgence of project managers, good, straight, honest PMs that have come into the industry, which weren't really around 20 years ago. It is much cleaner. I like it. And there's some good guys out there. And I think that's the biggest difference, is the transparency now that we have, and the openness and honesty that, we're not doing great. Why hide that? Why try and say that you are?
So like what about the industry like now? You mentioned like the whole PM, that they're cleaner, it's a lot more transparent. Not so cloak and dagger as you mentioned, but like where do you sit with it like it is now? And then if there's anything that you think you would improve, like for the industry itself, and we'll go on to HOT, but for the industry itself, what do you think should happen as such to improve it?
How long have you got?
As long as you can talk for me, which sounds like a long time.
No, I think in terms of improving it, I'm not sure it needs improving in the sense of, I just think that there's a lot of PMs that let a lot of stuff go. And I don't know why that is. I went to a project day before yesterday. It was 20,000 square feet, 2 floors, lovely site. in, where was it? West End. And we were going to pitch for the job originally, but it ended up being a £6 million project, and that would be 2 years ago. So that would have been just about our turnover 2 years ago. So we pulled out, but I knew the client, I knew him very well. He was on the board. And then, so we pulled out of it. And then another company got it, won it. I went in there yesterday and just thought, what a pile of shit.
Really?
Yeah. It was disgusting, really, for the money that they'd spent, and the office manager who walked us around, because we're looking at doing some little remedial works. I just said to him, what do you think? And he just went, it's awful, isn't it? It was designed by quite a reputable business in London, and project managed by a company that we work for now. And it just shocking.
Really?
Absolutely shocking. Yeah. The finishes are awful. Just not good at all.
And you feel bad for the client because they've invested so much money,
7-8 million. I think the job was 6-8 million in the end. Yeah,
it's all that time, all the money, and like the cultural shift they're going to get from the project itself, bringing the staff in.
And that's what I hate about our industry, and I think that's what could improve. That looks like they just made a killing on the fit out, and put stuff in there. Of course, we own our own joinery company, right? So we do in-house joinery, everything that we do. So we control that quality and that element as well, whereas I don't think there's another company in our industry that does own that. So they're not in control of the quality. When it gets to site, it's too late to send it back. They've got to put it in, and they'll reject it eventually, but it's a nightmare for the client. So that gives us a leg up as well.
I suppose that's a USP for you guys as well, isn't it? That you can control the finished joinery element. So like you can probably manufacture it quicker, and you're in full control.
They're the showstoppers, isn't it? Joinery. That's when you walk in, it's either a reception desk or bar, canteen, whatever it is, and we control the delivery on that and the quality.
And I assume that was your idea to start that as a joint yourself?
It was a joint decision again with myself and Wayne. My brother had a business, and we basically bought that off him, grown it, and took it off him. It's a real pleasure. He's 4 years older than me. It took me a long time, but it now works for me.
So obviously you've got the Hop, which is the DMB. You've got the joinery company as well. And then you mentioned you've got Small Works.
Yeah, so we've got Hopworks.
Hopworks
Projects Limited. I think it's 3 years.
Okay.
That was born out of we did a project, and the client was horrendous. It was a serviced office group. Abby Connor, who's now our MD for Hopworks, she was brilliant, and she was design help and so on. I'm probably under egging what she actually did. Can't really remember. I spent most of it hiding. She was too good to let go. So we set up Hopworks, and she runs that. And that's the day two. Small projects up to kind of $250,000, although they're just handing one over, which is about 400k, which is not great. That's not what we want, because that becomes competition to the main business. So, but it was a one-off. Day two.
And how does that transform you guys? Because, you're focusing on projects that are probably in greater value than £250,000. So has that allowed you to step under and go into the small?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. So when our PDs or sales team are out there, not that we've only got two, they can say yes to everything. And I know that goes against what I was saying earlier, but in terms of fit out, yes to everything. Because Abby's team will deliver that. And there's 4 in her team. So it's a pre-con design. Abby's designer anyway, I think Modus and Peldon Rose. So she's had a good start in life with those two companies, and then Michael, who's the PM. So and they just bang out 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand jobs.
And they run simultaneously, separately, do they, both of them? And do they, so do the second day works, do they potentially go and like snag the Hopworks?
No, we're not that callous. We'll snag our own work. We've cocked that up. Get the B team in. No, that's not how it works. And they're not the B team. I'll get a good item for that now.
But to be able to keep, sorry to interrupt, to be able to, not allow there to be a cultural divide if there's two companies running under the same roof. Like how do you not allow that to happen?
Well, I think that's the key element that I think I offer to the business. I think if nothing else, the culture side is what we do. And I think it's what I do. And it's about understanding people's differences and so on and so forth. And the culture of Hop is very fun, but very professional. And I think our end product shows that we're professional. But the journey from A to B is good fun. I mean, we quite often become real good friends with clients. We'll go out for drinks with them. So I think that it's that journey, and the Hopworks team. Obviously, Abby was Hop before Hopworks. They just follow in the same. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You know, it's not rocket science. What we do is not rocket science. We can make it difficult if we want to. But yeah, and the culture, you've just got to have fun. You know, there's no good coming to work. You spend most of your life at work. To coin a phrase, you know, you're here more than you're at home, and my God, it can be miserable at home, can't it? Sorry.
You mentioned it's not.
She won't listen to this, so that's fine.
You mentioned it's not rocket science. It's funny you say that because I was in a meeting as well discussing this with somebody else, and too many companies make it rocket science, but in theory, like, we're all kind of, you know, like, we do slight things different, but we're all doing the same thing.
Well, this leads right back to the first question: why Hop? Why we set up? Right? We've gone full circle. I think I was frustrated. I was in a traditional business, and we did one big kind of detail and build project. We partnered up with a design house, and we delivered a Cobalt Music. It ended up being 3 or 4 million. Beautiful job, made lots of money. So that was a little driver at the start. And then obviously meeting Wayne, and he was at another, I don't know, 50, 60 million pound turnover company. And he couldn't get stuff done quick enough. There was so many processes. So that was pretty much why we joined. Well, let's do it what the client wants, and the speed of what the client wants, not, oh, we've got to onboard them. It's going to take a month to do that. You know, we can't do any work for them yet. We can't raise a purchase order until they've signed this, and all of that bullshit.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
You have to have process. There's no doubt about it. But, you know, if you can't make a decision and go, right, we're going to do that, let's do it now. And everyone here is empowered to do the same. Yeah. There's no, but we're a flat tier of management here. Of course, you have the owners, and we've got, you know, a couple of directors, but they're not bosses. We're not bosses. You know, we employ adults. A lot of these are on 6 figures money. If I've got to tell them what to do and how to behave and what decisions they can and can't make, then we've failed as leaders. So, and that's why, you know, the basis of when we started was, right, let's do what the client wants. I know it sounds twee and all that, but it's true. That's what we do. And they want to do something, we'll do it. Yeah. You know, whether we charge you or not, it's irrelevant. You know, we'll do it. We make decisions for the client. We spend a lot of money doing things differently once we've designed them, and not passing that on to the client.
So how have you, I was going to mention it earlier, but we kind of diversed a bit there. So you've gone from £6 million a couple of years ago, did you say? Now you've grown all the way to 20?
Yeah. It's frightening, isn't it? Don't ask me how.
You're going to tell me you don't know.
Yeah, don't know, just by being good.
Yeah, of course.
Honest.
But what about the team element? Because like a team to facilitate £6 million compared to £20 million.
Yeah, well, I think we did 8 million 2 years ago. We had an 18-month year because we had a bad year the year before, so we tried to lessen the losses, and then we had the investment, so that outweighed the losses. So we kind of had a positive balance sheet of 110,000, I think, 4 years ago. Then we did the 8 million, that added a little bit to that, and then 17.4 last year, which was good. It was a nice year, profitable, cleared a lot of shit out. This is our first clean year where we've not had to carry shit over from one year to the other. You know, we've not had to carry any bad projects over, any bad debts. We had, you know, because we bodged a few jobs to begin with, retentions weren't being paid properly. I don't say bodged lightly. I mean, you know, we didn't put our best foot forward. We were new. We hadn't got a clue what we were doing.
It's nice to be honest about it as well, because, you know, some people would probably gloss over that and be like, you know, we tried our best, when realistically they probably, they might have tried their best, but they might have, you know, done a substandard. Yeah,
well, I mean, we tried our best, but it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's it, because we were growing and we were too busy, and I was too involved in the day-to-day, and Wayne was, you know, Wayne had never ran a job in his life. You know, he was pre-con, so he knew his stuff. But then he was running projects and not really knowing what he was doing. I didn't really want to do it. So we didn't put our best foot forward. So,
but you're growing drastically from that. I mean, 17.
The 17 last year, we've already booked that this year.
Yeah,
we're looking at possibly 20, possibly 22, 23.
Yeah.
And we've still got 7 months left of our year because we're April to April. So it's all good.
Yeah.
And it's all profitable, and it's profitable not because we overprice, it's profitable because we deliver on time, to price, on time, to target, all of that nonsense.
But you do, it sounds like you do what you say you're going to do, which is,
non-seal.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. And
yeah.
And the good thing is the PMs that we work for a few, now trust us to deliver what we're selling. And I think our latest PDF that we're going to have produced and that's going out to, landlords and so on is the pitch and the actual. You look at the visual of what we're selling, and then the actual of what we've delivered. And I tell you now, they're identical. There's when we do a visual, everything in that visual is included in our costs. The artwork, the flowers, the pencils, the trays, all of everything, the desks, a lot, everything's included.
Because that's
anything.
a hiccup, to be fair. Sorry to interrupt, because I just my mind just jumped. But that's a hiccup because when we started creating visuals as well, this was like a couple of years back. Some of the visuals that we created, we'd put things in there to make it look aesthetically nice, and then they would say, "So, are you putting the plants in?" And then it'd almost be like, no, we haven't actually priced for that. And then that's when we knew, because there was that stumbling block between like contractor and client. And we're like, we didn't actually include for that. So we need to be careful what we're putting in, because they rightly so think that that's what they're going to get.
Yeah, some people, I mean, again, this has changed. I'm reflecting on times before, but, you'd have visuals of gold handles on maple doors, and then when they come to signing the contract, they're not in there. And it's like, oh no, you've got painted doors with aluminium handles now. And they're like, but you showed us, oh yeah, but if you look at the cost plan, it's not in there. And that's what you pay, that's what you've bought, and that's what's contractual. So it was a bit dirty. We've all done it,
sure,
but not anymore.
No,
not since we started picking and choosing our jobs. Well, you can't.
It's true. No, you can't. You don't want to upset clients as well. And you don't want to leave on a bad foot. So, what's the plans with Hop going forward?
I think to get stability. I think we're at that point now where we've got enough clients. We're always out in the field because you've got to be continuously selling and marketing, because if you don't, you get forgotten. Coca-Cola don't need to advertise, but every Christmas,
they're always there.
And that's the thing. And you've still got to be out there, even though they don't need it. And we're the same, and not the same as Coca-Cola, but the same principles apply. So I think to get stability, if we could do 20 million in terms of turnover for the next 2 or 3 years, build up a good portfolio of clients, have good stable, have plenty of cash in the business, then that would be the aim. Moving forward, if that grows, it won't be at our will. I think it'll be a natural thing, because you can't stop growth. It's very difficult to stop it. If you're good, people want you, and therefore you're naturally growing. But the rents are so expensive, and we stole these 2 floors. So we'd have to pay double what we're paying here.
Oh, wow.
So that adds another 150, 200 grand onto your overhead.
Sure.
And the overheads are frightening.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. What about plans for yourself? Because you sound like a very intriguing
I'm up for sale.
Character. I'm sure you've
not
got
me,
that.
The business, or me if she's no. Russian billionaire. Thank you very much.
But what about yourself, personally? What's your future plans?
Well, I'm 53 now, so I think when we set the business up, we had a 5-year plan to get to a point. We're well ahead of that. So I think we're tied in with the investors for a few years. I can't leave or go anywhere else, which is only right. They put a lot of money and a lot of faith in the business. So I think 3 to 5 years from now, I'd like to be able to step away. I'm not sure I can step away any more than what I am already. I'm just stealing a salary now. But I think, and there'll be either an MBO or a sale, but I think Wayne's quite keen on taking over the whole business and doing an MBO, possibly with a couple of the employees that we've got upstairs, and move the business that way. I'll always remain involved. I think just to, first of all, stability. Once we've got that, then buy me out or do whatever. I'll bugger off to Portugal and play golf. Although I do actually want, on a serious note, I do want to grow the joinery business.
Okay, yeah.
So I want that to be able to work for other fit out companies, because we are the best. our joinery products are the best.
What is the joinery business called, by the way? Or is it
Jump?
Jump,
So we've got hop,
jump.
we just need a skip. So yeah, to all you demo firms out there, watch this space.
So the plans is to grow the joinery business as well.
Yeah, so that would give me something to do, because I'll be too young to retire, and you know, I'm not looking at 10 million. I'm not looking at anything ridiculous like that that's going to bankrupt the business. So yeah, the business needs to be stable, and then build Jump.
And then will that, you know, obviously it complements Hop, but will that then start going out to other? Yeah,
I mean, it works. They work for another two or three fit out businesses that are non-competitors to us. So that's nice. Not that they would operate any differently, but, you know, I've always said, if you're pricing, you need to be honest with the client, whoever they are, and say, we're pricing it for Hop. We'll give you identical costs, and then it's up to them.
Yeah.
And I say stick 10% on theirs, but they won't do it. I want to say that. But no, and they won't do that, which is great. You know, we are very open. We're very transparent as a business, and I hope that comes across in the way we are now, you know, the way I'm talking to you now. And we're all the same.
Yeah.
You know, there's no point, there's nothing under the table here. And I think with the joinery, I could grow that, and that could be quite a successful business in its own right without Hop. I think it depends on Hop. 85% of its work comes from here.
So you're looking for it to go not independent, but to be able to...
Well, it is independent, but yeah, I like it to have its own independencies, because, you know, we might not always be busy. You know, we could have a month or 2 months without much going on, or win a project that's a Cat A and there's no joinery on it, you know, so it needs to be able to be self-sufficient, I think, and I can help that.
What about, I was going to ask earlier, but we've covered so much.
I do like a waffle.
No, it's great. No, it's brilliant. You're obviously a humongous driving factor behind like just the culture here at Hop. Like, how important do you think culture is, not just for you guys, but just for businesses in general? It doesn't have to be specifically our industry.
Well, it's pretty shit if you've not got a culture. Well, it's shit if you've got a bad culture. Yeah. But no, I think culture has to play a part, because, you know, we employ adults. They're all grown up people, and no one wants to sit at a desk all day long and not be able to put their head up and say, or sing along to a radio, or the wireless, you know, or whatever it is. You know, you've got to be able to do that. I mean, Thursday afternoon, Friday, could be a Monday afternoon. You could have 2 or 3 people from upstate come. So for those that are listening, we've got 2 floors. The office is on the 2nd floor, and this space, you know, the delivery space is on the 1st floor. But we've got a beer fridge, wine fridge, all that kind of, nothing new again. It's been done way before we started business. But they'll come down and probably have a gin and tonic or a beer. It could be. I draw the line at 11 a.m. But you know, it could be any time during the day if they're stressed or they've not got much to do.
Yeah. It's not. It's, you know, it's probably the modern way of employment relationships is to allow, you know, as long as they're, you know, delivering the work, and like you said, it's contactable. If they want to go and do something, then they shouldn't be withheld, you know, to their desk. And this is, you got to be in there at 8 and you're leaving at that time. And
hate it. Never liked it. That's why I never liked school.
I don't like it either.
No,
I really don't. Yeah. And I also think you get less out of people by doing that.
Yeah, of course.
Because they probably drag their heels during that time, and they obviously, you know, end up.
You want me in at 8? I'll be in at 8 then. I'm not going to do anything till 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll sit here at 8 o'clock. You know, clock in, clock out. It's just so old fashioned.
It's archaic. It really is. Yeah. It's a dying breed, I should say. I don't know if I should call it that.
Yeah. Actually, I think when you're in a typical factory, you know, where you're clocking in and clocking out, there's room for that. You know, you have to, because they need to know the hours you're doing against their productivity and time and work and all that nonsense. But not here.
Yeah.
And not anywhere, I think, in our industry now. I think all the businesses are relatively similar. Culture's there, isn't it? I mean, I'll mention there, Third Way have a great culture. You know, we've got staff from Third Way, and we meet the guys, and they're brilliant, and they love it, you know, and that's good, and that's why they're so successful. So I think as long as you've got that, then the rest is easy.
Yeah, stems from the leaders, and you know, I would imagine, I've just been speaking to you for like an hour or so, and you've already lived one hell of a life, and you're only.
I won't tell you a bit of it. You've had 10%,
and you know, you're only in your early 50s. But by the sounds of it, because of what you know, you've lived and been through, you've been able to implement a really nice culture for for staff. So I imagine people want to come and work here.
I don't think we've ever had a leaver, because we run a tight ship. Everyone here is working at, I'll never allow them to work 100%, but 80, 90% is plenty.
Yeah.
And no more than 7-8 hours a day either. If you're in the office at 6 o'clock at night, and you can ask anyone up there, I'll send them home.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's brilliant,
Yeah.
because there's definitely companies out there who will like, inexplicitly not make them stay till 6 to get something done, but they'll make them feel like they have to.
Yeah.
Which is sad, to be fair, because the following day they're going to come in tired, and then they're
this is it. I mean, there are times, obviously, if you've got deadlines and so on, but they drive them themselves. We don't say, oh, you lot need to be here till 10 o'clock tonight. They know that anyway. And so they might even take the work home and do it at home. I don't care. As long as it gets done. It's about the output, not the input.
Very true. Lee, it's been a good one.
Yeah.
To sit here and,
I've reined it in. Wait till I'm a millionaire, then come.
No, just from my perspective, like, thanks so much for coming on.
No problem.
Hearing about your what you briefly described as your journey as such, it's massive credit to you to go what you've been through. It sounds like it's been a little bit up and down all the way up to today, and the fact that you're sitting here speaking to us in such an open and honest way. So I really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for coming on.
Great to meet you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lee.
Cheers.